Welcome to a special edition of Pac-12 Chalk Talk. This week our panelists are dishing out a midseason report card. I'm Mike Sackley, and in studio tonight from left to right we have Ben Haber, Pierce Bly, and Robbie Baker. All right, we will start our grading in Tucson with the Arizona Wildcats. They got their first conference win this past week against UCLA, and we've talked a lot about Nick Foles on this show as well. So Ben, how would you grade U of A's performance so far this season?
Mike, they had a tough start to start the season, but their offense is pretty good. The defense really struggling. Offense led by, as a guy we talk about consistently on this show, Nick Foles, who's been a great quarterback for them. A good weapon on the outside with Jaron Kreiner. But it doesn't mean much if you're not going to stop people on defense, so they're going to need to turn that around. They're getting out to such large deficits that their run game isn't really a factor. Keola Antolin is not really that bad of a running back, and you can't really tell because of he's not getting the opportunities. But the offense is doing its share, and the defense needs to start doing their share if they want to turn it around.
Now at the I-10 to Tempe, the Arizona State Sun Devils are 3-1 in Pac-12 play and are currently ranked 21st in the BCS standings. They've given a solid performance on both sides of the ball, judging by the grades you guys gave them. But Robbie, tell me what you think about those Sun Devils.
Well, Mike, the Sun Devils this year are a good football team. I gave them a B on offense, a B on defense, and a B- overall. The reason I gave them the grades I did is because on offense, Brock Osweiler has emerged as a leader, led this team to some big victories like Mizzou. Defensively, this team leads the Pac-12 with 11 takeaways. They've been a stout defense. The reason they only got a B- overall, in my opinion, though, is because they still don't seem to be living up to their potential. If I'm going to make a crazy analogy here, they're kind of like Microsoft. They have the Zune. People like it. It plays music, but they don't have the iPod. Stanford and Oregon, they have the iPod. They're Apple. Arizona State needs to step up. They need to win a big game to get their iPod, if you will. Maybe the Pac-12 championship game?
Couldn't have said it better myself, Robbie. Now let's head up to Berkeley. Despite Cal only having one conference win, you guys scored them pretty average across the board. So now go ahead and back it up. Pierce, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to be able to follow up a comparison like that. But, Cal is 4-3 overall, but 1-3 in the Pac-12, which is why I ranked them. I gave them a C. And the reason for that, I gave them a B- on offense because they're ranked in the top 20 in terms of passing yards per game. However, they are 78th overall in terms of rushing yards. I think it's a pretty so-so year for Cal football. They're trying to rebuild that program, so a C for me.
Yeah, and the reason I gave them the grades I did is because this team started off very strong, and you look at their quarterback, Zach Maynard, they kind of have come and gone as he has. Zach Maynard started off strong, so has the Cal Bears, and as of late, Maynard's kind of gone down, and so have the Cal Bears.
The running game, though, is pretty good. I like Izzy Sofel. Cal can breed running backs really well with Marshawn Lynch in recent years, Javid Best. A good running game there, but Maynard really struggling. The defense not living up to expectations. Jeff Tedford, a really good coach, though. He should turn things around for the Cal Bears.
You could pull some upsets coming down at the end of the year here?
No, I don't see that.
Possible. ASU's a possible one, but doubtful.
Zach Maynard needs to play really well in all those games for that to happen.
All right, guys, over to Boulder and one of the new teams in the Pac-12 this year. Colorado is winless in conference, and they only have one win total on the season. Now, I'm guessing your grades weren't too stellar for those Buffaloes, huh, Robbie?
Well, Mike, they rank last statistically in offense and defense. I gave them a D and a D-. I at least want them to pass, but they get an F overall because they are by far the worst team in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised Robbie even passed them on defense. Barely, D-. But for an F, I give them overall because 117th overall in terms of points against in the FBS. Over 37 points a game they're giving up. Their only win this season has come against in-state rivals Colorado State. I don't see Colorado getting another win for the rest of the season.
Probably not. Let me look at my notes and see what it says. They fail. They failed in all assets of football. They're really just not a good football team, and they're going to continue to struggle in the Pac-12 conference.
Now up to Eugene. Number 7 in the nation right now, the defending Pac-12 champ Oregon Ducks. Their only loss of the season was against a number 1 ranked team currently right now in LSU. And they have one of the best running backs in college football in Michael James. And even when he's hurt, they just seem to keep putting guys in there and keep rolling right along. Paris, those Oregon Ducks, how have they been able to be so effective this year, and what grade did you give them?
Mike, I was actually kind of surprised because I figured with them losing a lot of really good players on defense, that they wouldn't be too spectacular on defense. I gave them a B+, though, because they played very well. 7 interceptions with a 35.14 yards per return on those interceptions. That's huge when you don't need to be on offense, running the ball very much, but they are running the ball a lot. They're outgaining opponents 2,632 yards to 1,234. They're playing great on both sides of the ball. They've got 3 players combined with over 20 touchdowns total. I expect Oregon to continue playing well, although I don't see them beating Stanford in that game in Palo Alto later on this season. I expect Oregon to win out except for that game.
Now, meanwhile, up the road in Corvallis, the other team in the state of Oregon, the Oregon State Beavers, their marks are almost as bad as the Ducks are good. We saw Oregon State crush Washington State this week, but that still didn't impress you guys a whole lot, did it? We'll start with Robbie.
Well, Mike, they had a very rough start to the year. They went winless for a while, but they're starting to turn things around up there in Corvallis thanks to an upstart Sean Mannion and what is becoming a stout secondary. We've seen the secondary play very well against Arizona State, and I gave them the highest grade in their secondary, all of us. I gave them a B, and I guess I jumped on the Jordan Poyer bandwagon maybe a little bit too early, but I think that this team could maybe pull some upsets down the road. They're an average team in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'd agree with you definitely in that. Average is the best word for it. That is why I gave him a C-. A D on defense, 83rd overall with over 30 points a game being given up. I'd rank their offense higher. They are in the top 20 in terms of passing yards per game. However, they're 105th in the running game, and that's just not going to cut it in the Pac-12.
I think the stats passing-wise are a little deceiving, though. Mannion, they do rank 18th overall, but he is turning the ball over a lot, so that cancels out that. But the thing is, the defense, Robbie gave them a B. I think he meant B for bad. Jordan Poyer's been pretty good, but besides that, they've really struggled on that side of the ball.
Now, next up is the team 2 of you picked last week to represent the North in the Pac-12 championship. They're number 6 in the BCS rankings, and they have arguably the best quarterback in the nation in Andrew Luck. Ben, we are talking about the Stanford Cardinal, and you gave them straight A's at the midseason report card.
Yeah, I'm an expert on the Stanford Cardinal this week, and they've been an expert in every facet of football. They've been really good, and they have the best quarterback, Andrew Luck, which makes the job much easier for new coach David Shaw. And they have been really balanced, though. They do have a good running game with Stephon Taylor. And let's not count out this defense. This defense only giving up 12 points per game. They held Washington to, I believe, in the mid-20s last week. So they've been pretty solid, and Washington has been a great offense. So if they can do that, which many teams haven't been able to do, it shows how balanced they are. Probably the most balanced team in the nation, and I think they got to be the favorites to win the Pac-12 right now.
All right, guys, down to Westwood. Across the board, not very generous grades for the UCLA Bruins, considering they're only a game shy of first place in the Pac-12 South. Robbie, why'd you score them so low, and did their loss against Arizona last Thursday have anything to do with it?
Well, Mike, I gave them a C- on offense, a D+ on defense, and a D+ overall. Kirk Herbstreit picked the Bruins as his preseason favorite to win the Pac-12 South. Kirk Herbstreit, what you doing with your life? That was an awful pick. ASU is the team to beat in that conference, or that division of this conference. UCLA does not have a quarterback. They don't have a defense, and it's going to be very hard for them to win any more games going out the rest of the season.
Now let's head over to the other side of LA. The USC Trojans have played well so far this season, despite not being eligible for postseason play. USC really has made a mark with you guys, especially their big win over Notre Dame this past week, and they look to be on the up and up. We'll start with Pierce on this one. What did your grading look like for the Trojans, and why?
Yeah, I'm really surprised that they went in and beat Notre Dame like they did. I give them a B+ on offense, a B on defense. They had a lot of recruits leave their program once the sanctions were put in place, so the talent level isn't what it could be for the USC Trojans. They played very well this season, obviously 22nd in the nation in terms of passing yards per game. That's because Matt Barkley is the second best quarterback in the Pac-12. I'm sticking by that for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I gave the Trojans an A- on offense, B+ on defense, and a B+ overall. They did a great job on the road last week against Notre Dame, which I know I picked Notre Dame to win that game at home. But USC did a great job on the road. I got to disagree with you, though, Pierce. I think they're still a very deep team because Glenn Kiffin has done a great job with recruiting out there still. But USC is a great team because of the 1-2 punch of Robert Woods and Matt Barkley.
Yeah, as you said, the offense is just really explosive. The defense has played pretty well. I gave them a B on defense. They haven't been great, but they haven't been bad. They've been pretty solid, which equals a B. And offensively, they've been very solid, and they're very balanced with Mark Tyler, and then on the outside with Robert Woods. As you said, Robbie, they're going to be a weapon. They're going to be a good duo for a long time.
I'm not saying they're not deep, Robbie. I'm saying they're not as good as they could be, which is really impressive for them this year.
Now over to Salt Lake City, the Utah Utes have really struggled since coming to the Pac-12, still looking for their first conference win. However, their defense has really impressed you guys. They're the only team that all three of you graded their defense higher than their offense. What grade did you guys give Utah and why? And we'll start with Ben.
I gave Utah overall a C-. They currently are 3-4 overall, but the thing is for them, they are 0-4 in the conference, new to the Pac-12, and they've really struggled there so far. The offense currently 93rd in the nation with only 196 passing yards per game. John Hayes has not been able to do what Jordan Wynn was able to do. John White, a good running back, but the defense really keeping them in ball games.
Yeah, Utah's offense has really disappointed me so far this season. I gave them a D. A C on the defensive side of the ball because they have been playing pretty well. Obviously, going into Pitt and not giving up a single offensive touchdown is very good defensively for Utah. D+ overall because they came into the Pac-12 South very hyped, potentially could have ran with Arizona State and USC for the title, even though USC can't win it. And they're 0-4 in the Pac-12. I think it's a disappointing year for the Utes.
Well, if you look at the Utes offensively, the injury to their starting quarterback has played a big issue for them. Hayes is a decent quarterback, but he's not the quarterback that's going to win them games. The reason I rank their defense above their offense, though, is because they rank 3rd overall in the Pac-12 in overall defense, and they forced 7 takeaways. That's good for 2nd overall, or tied for 2nd, in the Pac-12. So their defense is very good. And Pierce, you mentioned the game against Pitt. That was in itself a great defensive game. So Utah, in my opinion, can still pull some upsets, though, coming out throughout the rest of the year.
Now back up to the Pac-12 North and in Seattle, the Washington Huskies lost their first conference game of the season against Stanford this past weekend. But offense really has not been much of a problem so far. Pierce is watching Husky football, basically just watching the Keith Price show.
You can't say that it's just the Keith Price show because it's not. They have good players on both sides of the ball, even though their defense is a lot worse than their offense is. Look, their 2 losses for Washington this year have come against very good football teams that are both ranked, Nebraska and Stanford. I gave them an A- on offense because Keith Price has really come out 22 touchdowns this year and only 5 interceptions, has come out as a very good quarterback and will probably be the best quarterback in the Pac-12 next year if Matt Barkley decides to go to the NFL. C+ on defense just because they've given up a lot of points this year per game. So Washington, B+ overall on my books.
Now, guys, over to Pullman, we're down to our last team, and the team where your grades differed the most, the Washington State Cougars. Pierce and Robbie gave the Cougars a C+ overall, while Ben, you gave them a D, so justify your grade.
Look, they've done well compared to their expectations, guys, but compared to the rest of the Pac-12, I really don't think they've been that good. They lost to Oregon State last week, who's not a great ball club themselves. The thing is for them, they had a good rhythm going with Lobostel at quarterback. Toole was their guy going into the season. He had big expectations for him, but really hasn't panned out since he's come back from the injury. I think they need to go back to Lobostel. That offense is currently 10th in the nation passing offense at 313 yards per game, and that's due to Lobostel, guys. That's not due to Toole. So if they go back to him at quarterback, I think that'd help the team a lot.
I think that Ben just made my point for me. 10th overall in the nation for passing yards. When was the last time you heard Washington State mentioned in that category? B- on offense for me, a pretty good year considering Toole was their starter at the beginning of the year. A C+ overall just because if they end up winning another game this year, they end up winning more games than they have in the past 3 years combined. So I'd say it's a positive for Washington State football this year.
Yeah, there's really not much else for me to say that you guys haven't already mentioned. I definitely think they should go back to Lobenstahl at quarterback, as he's led them to a passing attack that many people didn't think they would have this year. And defensively, they've been good enough to keep them in games. And like Pierce said, if they only win one more game, that ties what they've done in the past 2 years. So Washington State, the reason I gave them the C+ grade that I did is because for their expectations, in my opinion, they're exceeding them a little bit.
Look, but overall, guys, they aren't as good because I don't like the coaching decision between making Toole the quarterback. I think Lobostel was doing a great job there, so keep him in. Why not go with what is going right? He had a good flow there for Washington State, and that's why their passing offense is so good. And he's not the quarterback now, so therefore their passing offense isn't as good.
Alrighty, guys, well, we've reached the end of our midseason report card. Thanks for joining us. For more Chalk Talk and a preview of the Week 9 matchups, be sure to subscribe right here on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at Pac-12 Chalk Talk. For Ben Haber, Pierce Bly, and Robbie Baker, I'm Mike Sackley, and we'll see you next week.